Morning, welcome back to the show. 11:50 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is Talk. Let's talk about the BBC. It's the BBC basically doing the dirty on Donald Trump, not just in that Panorama documentary, but also in a Newsnight report as well over that 2021 January the 6th speech that Donald Trump did, slicing it slightly differently, two separate things that he said very closely to make it look like he was directly inciting physical violence at the Capitol that day. But of course, we've got Donald Trump threatening a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit. He said he wanted an apology by last Friday. It was up to $1 billion. Now he's talking about up to $5 billion. So the question is now should anyone, particularly our Prime Minister, who apparently has such a good relationship with Donald Trump, try and talk him out of it to save the BBC and indeed our money? Let's talk to John Mair. He's a former BBC producer. Good morning to you.
Hi, Julia. Good morning to you.
Thank you very much for joining us. So, do you think it's reasonable that Donald Trump should be suing the BBC for misrepresenting him?
Look, Julia, let's get reasonable. Do we want the BBC? Do we want the British Broadcasting Corporation, or do we want the Trump Broadcasting Corporation? This is what Donald Trump wants to do. If he gets his way, $5 billion is the entire license fee for 1 year. Where's the BBC going to get that money from? Be sensible. Tell Trump to take a running jump. It's got nothing to do with him.
What do you mean? No, it has got. No, hold on a minute. Wait, he's not trying to take the station over. He's simply saying that, I mean, you can like Trump or dislike Trump. You can vote for him, not vote for him. But there is nobody that I don't like Adolf Hitler, but I don't think people should distort what he said in a speech. You could just play what he actually said. There were two deliberate attempts. They weren't mistakes. They weren't inadvertent errors. Two deliberate attempts to actually distort and mislead the British viewer, the audience that are forced by law to pay for the fee that funds this. We were misled by the BBC about something that he said. He's got every right to sue, same as anyone else.
The BBC's apologised, Julia, and in fact, the show, as you know, was never shown in America, and Trump won an election 2 days later. No, look, he has tried to bankrupt the BBC. What he's done in America, he's got rid of any opposition. PBS is gone, NPR is gone.
They haven't gone. They haven't gone. He's just not funding them because they're not neutral broadcasters.
They've been chopped off at the knees, Julia. And then he's also taken on the networks, but the only two people who've taken him on are New York Times and CNN. Trump is a playground bully. Why don't people realise?
I think he is, and I don't think that he wants a free press. I think he wants people to be to kowtow to him. I completely get that, but then so do the left. We see this all the time. They're exactly the same people who are attacking our station and other stations with a similar viewpoint. They're exactly the same. The left does this all the time, but you think you're the good people, so it's okay.
No,
at the end of the day, the BBC did something wrong. Heads have rolled. They've apologised and heads have rolled, but they still say there isn't a problem. There is a problem because they don't think it's institutional when it is. He's not suing in a British court. He's suing in a Floridian court, by all accounts. There are some big question marks about whether or not, as you say, there has actually been damage to his reputation that he's had an impact from, but given that he won an election soon afterwards, and it wasn't played in America. So there are question marks about that. But if the BBC does actually do something wrong to someone, they misrepresent someone, doesn't anyone, whether they are abroad or in Britain, have the right to take legal action against the BBC? Or can they just do anything they want?
No, of course they have a right to.
So why doesn't he?
Why does he want $5 billion?
He won't get $5 billion. He talks silly numbers. He won't get $5 billion.
This is Trump's style. This is the art of the deal. You're going over the top, and he accepted $50 million in most cases. Look.
Well, why shouldn't he? So why shouldn't he get $15 million then?
Well, he should get nothing. He's had an apology. That's good enough.
Well, hold on a minute. No, hold on a minute. I work in a building. We've got newspapers and broadcasters. Yeah. If we libelled somebody, if we misrepresented somebody, we would be expected to pay them damages by a court.
Well, he's had an apology, and that's
no. Why is the BBC different? Why just because you don't like someone or agree with them? Why isn't he entitled to damages?
Look, you must not give in to playground bullies. And, if Trump came after talkTV and started bullying you, I bet you would object to it.
I'm sorry, no. If we misrepresented somebody, I think they'd have a right to have redress. That's why we don't do that, because we try and be honest about people.
Now, Julia, do you want to destroy 104 years of broadcasting history? Do you want to destroy the BBC?
I'm not. No. The BBC's doing that all on its own. It doesn't need my help.
I know, okay. Well, do you want to do? I mean, you remember the last time we spoke? I talked about the hyenas who were after the damaged BBC, and now you've got a bone. And you're going to pick at it. But the BBC is one of the great British institutions.
It was. It absolutely was, but it isn't anymore. I don't want the BBC. John, I don't want the BBC to be defunded and not exist, but I would like the BBC to once again become a great British institution that we could all get behind and we're all happy to fund, doing proper public service broadcasting instead of lecturing us and basically giving blatant, liberal left bias. They brought this on themselves.
I see that Trump is now objecting to the Reith lecture. He doesn't like what the Reith lecturers say. What has it got to do with him? Look.
Well, he's called a monster by the Reith lecturer. This is the annual.
Yeah, but that's fine. He's allowed to have a point of view.
He's entitled to do that. Yes.
Yeah, people are allowed to have points of view. Trump can't determine what everybody says. I'm left of centre, but I actually believe let 100 flowers bloom. And I, by and large, believe the BBC is straight down the line.
No, I know, and that's the problem. Is lots of people on the left think that, and very, very few people on the right think that. So one of us is wrong.
I watch ITN at 10 o'clock instead because the story selection is better. It's more relaxed. The BBC is really a bit too uptight. It's too aunty. They need to relax a bit. But now is the time for the BBC to reset.
I don't think they need to relax. I think they need to get their act together. But there we are.
And use that horrible phrase, learn the lesson.
John, should the Prime Minister use what political capital he has with Donald Trump? They appear to think they're good friends, and actually basically ask a favour. And try again.
No, absolutely not. It's not the Prime Minister's job to do that. It's not the Secretary of State for Culture's job to do that. The BBC's done what the BBC's done. Keir Starmer should not go crawling to Donald Trump.
Okay. What about the legal? There's going to be legal costs, whether they settle, whatever they end up doing. If they settle or they end up making a payout, frankly, I'd love there to be a court case just to see all the emails and what's really been going on.
We'll see all the discovery.
That discovery would be great. But where should that money come from if and when it does get paid?
As you know, it comes from the BBC's libel insurance. So it shouldn't come from the taxpayer. But if you actually believe that Trump should get $5 billion, why don't you support doubling the licence fee, a Trump tax?
I don't think he should get $5 billion. He's clearly not been damaged $5 billion.
Well, he's asking for that.
Of course he is.
He's asking for that.
You can ask for $1 trillion. It doesn't mean he's going to get it.
No, but why don't you support doubling the license? Let's have a Trump tax on the license fee. So, all right, folks.
Wait a minute, you just said it's going to come out from their insurance, so we don't have to worry.
Let's double £174.50 to pay for Donald Trump, to pay into the Trump Presidential Fund, which is what he has. Come on, so just tell Trump.
Do you know what would be much simpler? The BBC could not just sort of completely mislead people, then they could do honest reporting, and then we wouldn't even have to discuss it, would we?
There's no defence of what went on, but they've apologised.
There's no defence, exactly, which is why he's got his...
We'll learn the lessons. And also, leave the BBC alone. Great national institution.
Leave the BBC. I'll leave the BBC alone when they start leaving us alone. Stop lecturing us. John Mair, so good to talk to you. I have to leave it there. Former BBC producer. I've got to let Sam Armstrong, whose face has been a picture throughout that conversation, have the final say.
I mean, listening to that, the Trump derangement syndrome there, he says, there's no opposition in the States. There's no criticism of Donald Trump. He's shut everyone down. I've just spent 2.5 weeks in the States. Let me tell you, they're all fuming about him. And by the way, do you know how there is Trump opposition there? The Democrats just did pretty well in the November elections. Yeah. They won in Virginia, some crazy leftist won in New York. There is plenty of opposition there. You don't need the BBC for a neutral and balanced media. It's not that special. They just need to do their job without lying to the public.
Yeah,